Hey, it's John F. Gately. Welcome back. And today's big news and over the weekend has been this emails released by the Select Committee in the House relative to Dr. Fauci's involvement in suppressing the lab leak theory in early 2020. And so this is such an important issue. Like it's the biggest lie of our time, or recent times at least, that I think it deserves a deep dive into the exact memo that the House Select Committee is circulating and why they are saying Fauci lied. So let's get right into it. Okay, here we go with the memo that the committee staff wrote to its members. And it's a 7-page memo. We're not going to go over every line. Don't worry about that. But we are going to touch about 6 very important things in this memo in order to understand the story beyond just what you're hearing on the headlines, right? You know, you're watching this video because you want to see the actual evidence that the committee has. So let's take a look. Right off the bat, they lead with on February 1st, 2020. So that would have been fairly early in the whole pandemic thing. That's when, you know, the general public wasn't taking it quite so seriously yet. That didn't happen until, say, mid-March. So on February 1st of 2020, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Collins, and at least 11 other scientists convened a conference call. On this conference call, Dr. Fauci and Collins were warned that COVID-19 may have leaked from a lab in Wuhan, and further, may have been intentionally genetically manipulated. In other words, man-made in the lab. Yet, only 3 days later, on February 4th, 4 of the conference call participants began and authored a draft paper called Proximal Origin of SARS-CoV-2. Proximal Origin, we'll call it. And sent a draft to Fauci and Collins for review before it was sent to the journal called Nature Medicine. That is a huge, huge development in this story. That's where this story basically begins. And, you know, I'm not a scientist, but my presumption would be that if you were presented on a conference call on the 1st of February with a theory, you would not be drafting a paper 3 days later. It would take some time, some considerable time, to make a determination about where this virus actually came from. And 3 days, as far as I'm concerned, is not enough. Let's go to the next important bullet. So if they were moving along with this paper fairly quickly, what was the goal? The goal of the Proximal Origin paper was to disprove lab theory. Now, Scripps, who Dr. Anderson worked for, Scripps wrote a letter in 2021, August of 2021, saying, oh, that was not true. We looked at it objectively. And here is their letter. Dr. Anderson began investigating the origins of COVID-2. Dr. Anderson has objectively weighed all the evidence available. Dr. Anderson viewed the evolved consistent with evidence at his disposal. Scientists make conclusions supported by evidence. Except, there's an email from Dr. Anderson himself, which he wrote in February 8th of 2020. So that would be contemporary with the drafting of Proximal Origin, that our main work over the last couple of weeks has been focused on trying to disprove any type of lab theory. So in August of 2021, Dr. Anderson's employer was like, oh, we didn't do that. But contemporary at the time, early February 2020, Dr. Anderson himself said that, yes, I was trying to disprove the lab theory. Jack, what's the source for that? It's footnote number 10. Let's take a look at what footnote number 10 is. Oh, footnote number 10, it's an email from Dr. Anderson to a doctor scientist in Germany. It's Dr. Anderson himself on February 8th, 2020, saying that we've been moving to disprove the lab theory very quickly. Now, in August of 2021, Scripps, who again is Dr. Anderson's employer, indicated that Dr. Fauci did not in any way view or attempt to influence Dr. Anderson or any other member of the group working on this topic, the international subject matter experts, blah, blah, blah. However, Dr. Anderson himself, in an email to Nature, where the study was going to be published, he wrote, quote, "There has been a lot of speculation and fear-mongering and conspiracies put forward in this space. We thought that bringing some clarity to discussion might be helpful. This has been prompted by Dr. Farah, Tony Fauci, and Francis Collins, Ed Holmes, and others. We've been working through much of the primarily genetic data to provide agnostic and scientifically informed hypothesis around the origins of the virus." In other words, in the memo to the journal Nature, notifying them that they're going to be submitting an article for publication, in that article, Dr. Anderson specifically mentions Dr. Fauci and uses the word prompted. We've been prompted to submit this by Jeremy Farah from the World Health Organization and Tony Fauci. Says it right there, February 12th, 2020. So the journal Nature does a quick peer review of this article, and here's what one of the referees of the journal Nature had to say, the second referee. "The paper itself, meaning Proximal Origin, is interesting, but unnecessarily speculative. It's not clear why the authors do not refute a hypothetical lab origin in their coming publication." In other words, other scientists are aware it may have come from a lab. Why don't you actually refute that? Once the authors publish their new pangolin sequences, a lab origin will be extremely unlikely. In other words, because you're so well known, if you publish this paper, because you're so well known, not because that you were right, but because you're so well known and respected, it's going to be difficult to prove otherwise. It's not clear why authors rush with speculative perspective if their central hypotheses can be supported by their own data. In other words, why are you rushing? Why don't you take the time to disprove the lab theory if you have the data anyways? Why not be completely thorough on such an important topic? So during this early February time, one of the doctors that's drafting this paper, Dr. Eddie Holmes, brings in Ian Lipkin, who's another doctor of I can't even pronounce it, at Columbia University, epidemiology. He was brought in on February 10th for a review of this paper. So here's the document we wrote about a few days ago. Things are moving so quickly, it's hard to keep up. Comments are welcome. I favor natural evolution myself, but the cleavage site is an issue. In other words, like maybe we are not really proving our case. I'll have a chat with Jeremy in a little while to see if I can get you more directly involved. Dr. Lipkin responds, "It's well reasoned and provides a plausible argument against genetic engineering." In other words, the draft of the Proximal Origin paper. "It does not eliminate the possibility of an inadvertent release following adaptation, gain of function, through selection in culture at the Institute in Wuhan." In other words, the paper that you're trying to push through to the journal Nature doesn't disprove the lab theory. Given the scale of the bat research pursued there and the site emergence of the first human cases in Wuhan, we have a significant nightmare of circumstantial evidence to assess. What he's saying here is incredibly important. Basically, he's saying what Jon Stewart said. The name of the lab is the name of the virus. It's Occam's Razor, which has become a popular phrase in the last couple of years. The most likely explanation is probably what happened. And the last major point from the Select Committee memo is from February 17th. Remember, the conference call that started this all off started on February 1st, and then on February 4th, they already had a draft. Now it's February 17th. Dr. Lipkin emails Dr. Farah to thank him for leading the process. "Thank you for shepherding this paper. In other words, the World Health Organization, we're run by China, is basically writing this paper. Thank you for shepherding this paper. Rumors of bioweapon engineering are now circulating in China. Oh, can't have that. Dr. Farah responds, confirming and saying that he will pressure Nature to publish. Yes, I know. Also in the US. In other words, the rumors of the bioweaponeering are also circulating in the United States. Why so keen to get this out ASAP? We got to get this out ASAP. I will push Nature. Now, lastly, and I'm just going to scroll down here a little bit. This, as far as I'm concerned, very, very concerning, as how the World Health Organization had its fingers in this report. In addition to leading the drafting and the publication, Dr. Farah made one last direct edit to the paper on February 17th. Sorry to micromanage / micro edit, but would you be willing to change one sentence from "it is unlikely that COVID emerged from a laboratory manipulation" to "it is improbable that COVID emerged through laboratory manipulation"? And again, let's check the source on this. The source is an email from Dr. Farah himself to Dr. Anderson. And what did Dr. Anderson respond? Sure, see attached. What does all this mean? It means that the virus was probably man-made in the lab in Wuhan. Now, it leaves out the question, or it still remains, whether or not it was released purposely or by accident. There's no addressing that issue at the moment. But what is clear is that Dr. Fauci and his other associates at the federal government, like Dr. Collins, wanted to put everyone off the scent, so to speak, so that their involvement in funding the virus and funding the lab in Wuhan would not be highlighted. Let's be perfectly clear from what we understand. Dr. Fauci, through the EcoHealth Alliance, funded the lab in Wuhan that was doing this research. That seems fairly well established. In fact, they continue to fund EcoHealth. Believe it or not, they continue to get grants not even that long ago. So, in misdirecting the entire world relative to the origins of virus, Dr. Fauci is trying to cover his own culpability in this giant worldwide pandemic. I'm John F. Gately from Plymouth, America's hometown, in Massachusetts, behind enemy lines. Have a great day.